She changed our lives forever. Since that moment, our family grew even more. Amy is now 10 and Benji is 9. We still sing together on weekends, write songs as a family, and Bill continues to publish. For years, people admired them as the perfect example of a couple united in love, faith, and music. They seemed unbreakable, a shining image of devotion both at home and on stage. Bill Gaither and his wife had long represented what many believed was an ideal partnership. But then came a quiet, heartbreaking announcement that shattered that picture-perfect illusion. After decades of marriage and ministry, Bill Gaither's wife filed for divorce and decided to reveal a personal truth that left millions of fans stunned and heartbroken. People everywhere began to ask, what could make a woman who had stood beside her husband through years of success and service finally walk away? For many, Bill and his wife were the embodiment of love rooted in faith. Their music brought comfort to the weary, hope to the struggling, and inspiration to believers across the world. Together, they didn't just build a career, they built a legacy. Their songs, filled with grace and harmony, carried messages that touched hearts far and wide. Fans admired their unwavering bond, their dedication to gospel music, and their ability to face life's toughest moments as a team. That's why the sudden announcement took everyone by surprise. The woman who had faithfully supported Bill through triumphs and trials had delivered news that no one saw coming. News that carried the weight of something deeply personal and life-changing. Almost instantly, silence fell over their fan base. Social media filled with concern, prayers, and endless speculation. Was she ill? Was something wrong with their family? Or was it something even harder to imagine? The Gaithers had always protected their private lives, but this time, the seriousness of her message could not be ignored. The story spread quickly, creating confusion and worry everywhere it reached. Some fans refused to believe it, clinging to the hope that it was a misunderstanding. Others feared the worst, that this marked the beginning of a painful new chapter in their lives. But one fact remained undeniable. Bill Gaither's wife had changed everything with one shattering revelation. When she finally spoke publicly, the world listened in silence. Known for her grace, humility, and faith, she stood before everyone with a trembling yet steady voice. "This is not easy for me to talk about," she began softly, "but I feel I owe honesty to all of you, our friends, our spiritual family, and those who have supported us all these years." The room seemed to hold its breath. She then revealed the heartbreaking truth, not a scandal or betrayal, but a devastating personal struggle. It wasn't about fame or failure. It was about her health, a reality that no one had expected. Her message might have come through an emotional video, an intimate interview, or a heartfelt written statement. But its essence was clear. She was facing a painful and deeply human battle. Her words carried a mix of sorrow and strength. "I never thought I'd have to share something like this," she continued, her eyes glistening with tears. "But I believe in truth, in prayer, and in the healing power of faith. And right now, we need your prayers more than ever." As her statement spread, love and compassion poured in from across the world. Fans, friends, and fellow gospel artists flooded social media with prayers, messages, and memories. Some reread her words over and over, hoping they had misunderstood. Others wept, remembering how the Gaithers' music had carried them through their own struggles. But through all the confusion and grief, one thing became clear. This was not just a public announcement. It was an act of courage, faith, and honesty. The news didn't just affect Bill's wife. It rippled through the entire Gaither family. For years, Bill had been the symbol of unwavering faith, standing tall on stage, singing songs of hope. But now the storm had reached his own home. This was no longer a distant test of faith sung about in hymns. It was a real personal trial that required every ounce of strength he had. Those closest to him noticed a quiet change. Behind his calm expression was a deep sorrow, the kind that comes when one realizes that not every mountain can be moved with words alone. The family drew closer, leaning on one another for support. Their children, close friends, and their faith community surrounded them with love and encouragement. Still, the challenge they faced was unlike any before. It was a test of faith, endurance, and hope, the very values they had preached for decades. Bill responded not with bitterness, but with prayer and reflection. Faith isn't just for the good times, he confided to a friend. It's for the moments when you can't see the road ahead, but you still trust that God does. Messages of comfort poured in from fans and fellow gospel singers. Letters, calls, and posts flooded in, filled with stories of how the Gaithers' songs had changed lives. And yet, despite the outpouring of love, their lives had undeniably changed. Their future, once certain and full of plans, now seemed uncertain. Would they continue performing? Would this painful chapter force them to step back from public life? No one, not even Bill and his wife, had the answers. Then the truth emerged. With quiet bravery, Gloria Gaither shared what had truly been happening. She revealed that she had been diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia, PPA, a rare form of dementia that slowly robs a person of their ability to communicate. For a woman whose gift was words, who had written songs that brought hope and healing to millions, the diagnosis was a devastating twist of fate. The very gift that had defined her life was being taken away piece by piece. It started subtly. A forgotten word, a momentary pause, a sentence that didn't come out quite right. At first, Bill noticed the hesitation, the way she sometimes struggled to find a simple phrase. Gloria, always so articulate, began to feel it too, as though a gentle fog was moving through her mind, blurring her once clear thoughts. Doctors, tests, and endless waiting followed. When the neurologist finally uttered the word dementia, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. It was a word filled with fear, one that carried the weight of loss and endings. For days afterward, their home fell silent. It wasn't peace, but the heavy silence of heartbreak. How would they move forward? How could Gloria, the writer of countless hymns, continue her work? And how could Bill stand on stage and sing songs of faith while facing such deep sorrow? For the first time, Bill's faith was shaken. The man who had preached that God was in control found himself sitting alone with his Bible, searching for meaning. In that quiet, he found solace not in easy answers, but in the raw honesty of the Psalms, in David's cries of doubt and pain. Slowly, his faith began to evolve, no longer the faith of certainty, but of trust. A quiet, enduring trust that even in the midst of darkness, light still flickers. When it came time to tell their children and grandchildren, it was one of the hardest moments of their lives. But even through the tears, the Gaither family held on to each other and to the faith that had always guided them. Their story, though marked by heartbreak, became a living testimony, not of perfection, but of perseverance. And though the future remained uncertain, Bill and Gloria Gaither faced it as they always had, together, grounded in faith, and surrounded by love. They gathered their family in the familiar warmth of their living room, the same space that had witnessed countless birthdays. Christmas mornings and quiet evenings filled with laughter and song. This room, once alive with the sound of music and celebration, now became the setting for one of the most difficult conversations of their lives. Gloria, with her husband Bill seated beside her, gently holding her trembling hand, spoke with as much strength and clarity as she could find. She told her loved ones about the challenges that lay ahead, about the difficult road they would all walk together, but also about her unwavering faith in God's goodness. Tears flowed freely, yet beneath the sorrow was a powerful undercurrent of love and unity. Their family didn't respond with pity. They responded with fierce determination. Together they vowed to face the uncertainty before them, bound not only by blood but by faith. In the days that followed, the Gaither family threw themselves into understanding Gloria's condition, primary progressive aphasia, PPA. They read every article they could find, consulted doctors, and learned how to communicate in new ways, through gestures, expressions, and the silent language of shared memories. The once bustling Gaither home, filled with creative energy and musical collaboration, transformed into a sanctuary of quiet love, patience, and compassion. Yet even amid this intimate struggle, Bill and Gloria made another brave decision: to share their journey publicly. It wasn't easy, especially for Gloria, who had always valued privacy. But both she and Bill felt a deep sense of duty to the community that had supported them for decades. They knew that many other families were silently enduring similar pain, and by being open about their journey, they hoped to bring light, faith, and solidarity to others walking the same path. The moment Gloria's condition became public, the entire gospel music world seemed to pause. News of her diagnosis sent a wave of emotion through fans and fellow musicians alike. For years, Bill and Gloria Gaither had been pillars of hope and joy, their music a refuge for those in pain. Now it was their turn to be lifted up by the very community they had inspired. Social media flooded with tributes, prayers, and heartfelt memories. Hashtags like "Tus Pray for Gloria" and "Tus Faith Over Fear" began trending worldwide. Fans shared stories of how Gaither songs had carried them through heartbreak, illness, and loss. Churches organized prayer services, lighting candles in Gloria's honor. Gospel artists, from legends to newcomers, posted videos recounting the influence of the Gaithers' music on their own faith and careers. One well-known gospel singer summed up the sentiment in a moving message. "Bill and Gloria have given us so much through their music and ministry. Now it's our turn to give back, and through prayer, love, and unwavering support." Even outside the gospel world, news outlets began covering the story, highlighting the extraordinary outpouring of compassion from fans across the globe. The Gaithers were not just admired artists, they were beloved friends to millions, and though there was widespread grief, there was also an unshakable sense of faith. One longtime fan shared, "Their music was played at my wedding and at my mother's funeral. They've been part of my life's biggest moments. It's hard to see them go through this, but as their songs always remind us, God is with us, even in the darkest valleys." The support only grew stronger with time. Letters, cards, and gifts arrived daily. Audiences at concerts paused to pray before performances, and gospel radio stations began dedicating classic Gaither songs to the couple. Each message and melody carried a promise that they were not walking this road alone. The Gaithers could feel the prayers surrounding them like a warm embrace. Even as the future seemed uncertain, one truth became clear. Their legacy of faith and love had built a community that would now sustain them. Soon, the community's devotion took on an even grander form. The gospel world came together for a global tribute concert titled, "Because He Lives, A Night for Gloria." The event wasn't a fundraiser, it was a celebration of gratitude and love. Artists from every generation performed Gaither classics, sharing personal stories of how Gloria's songwriting had shaped their faith. Bill watched the event from home, seated beside his beloved wife, her hand in his. As familiar voices filled the screen, tears streamed down his face, tears of both sorrow and profound gratitude. In that moment, he realized that their songs no longer belonged solely to them. The music had become the world's, a timeless gift of hope and healing. Letters continued to pour in from around the world. A woman from Ohio shared how the old rugged cross made the difference had strengthened her during her husband's battle with cancer. A young man from Texas wrote that "He Touched Me" had been his lifeline through addiction recovery. Each story was a reflection of how their music had become intertwined with people's lives. Gloria, though struggling with speech, read every letter, her eyes glistening with compassion. She couldn't always reply, but she would softly tell Bill, "They get it. They really get it." Those simple words carried a world of meaning, proof that their message of faith had truly reached the hearts of others. In time, the Gaithers' journey evolved into something far deeper than public recognition. Their story of vulnerability, resilience, and faith connected them to people in ways they had never imagined. They were no longer just celebrated gospel icons. They were fellow travelers in the shared human experience of suffering and grace. As the months passed, Bill released a heartfelt message to their followers. He expressed immense gratitude for the love and prayers that had carried them through uncertain days. "We've spent our lives singing about faith and God's strength in hard times," he wrote. "Now, more than ever, we are learning to live those words." He explained that they would be stepping back from their usual touring schedule to focus on health and family. The announcement wasn't a farewell. It was a quiet act of surrender and faith. Fans responded with deep understanding. They didn't see this as a goodbye, but as a sacred pause. Messages of love continued to flood in, reminding the couple of how much they had given to the world. Even as Bill and Gloria withdrew from the spotlight, their songs continued to echo in churches, homes, and hearts around the world. People rediscovered the deeper meaning of lyrics like, "Because He Lives." One fan wrote, "I never truly understood the song's message until now. Their faith has taught us what it really means to trust God through uncertainty." At home, life took on a new rhythm. The grand piano that had once filled their living room with melodies now stood mostly silent. Yet the house remained full of music in quieter, more intimate forms. Bill became Gloria's devoted caregiver, reading to her, reciting scripture, and revisiting her old lyrics. Sometimes she would smile faintly, recognizing a line or a memory. Those fleeting moments became sacred gifts. Bill began recording Gloria's spontaneous insights, the Gloria-isms, as he called them, and turned them into new songs, simple and soulful reflections of love, loss, and enduring faith. Eventually, Bill started a private online blog to share their journey. What began as a small circle of updates soon grew into a global community of readers, many of them caregivers or people living with chronic illnesses, who found solace and understanding in the Gaithers story. Through this new ministry, Bill and Gloria continued to teach others that faith is not about escaping pain, but about finding God's presence in the midst of it. The Gaither vocal band continued to perform, but their concerts had changed. They were no longer just shows. They were gatherings of shared prayer, resilience, and gratitude. When they sang something beautiful, the audience understood that the beauty they sang of came from brokenness, from the strength to keep believing even when life feels fragile. Though the future remained uncertain, Bill and Gloria's legacy grew ever stronger. Their faith, their love, and their story had become a living testimony, a melody that transcended words. They had always sung about a God who brings light into darkness, and now they were living proof of that truth. Their greatest masterpiece was no longer written in notes or lyrics, but in their daily acts of courage, devotion, and trust. And that, their enduring love and faith, would remain their most beautiful song, echoing in the hearts of millions for generations to come. As time went on, the Gaithers' journey began to take on an even deeper spiritual dimension. What had started as a painful diagnosis slowly became a profound lesson in grace, humility, and love that reached far beyond their home. The world continued to watch, not with morbid curiosity, but with admiration for the faith that continued to shine through their hardship. Bill often said in interviews that while their lives had changed, their mission had not. "We're still here to serve," he would remark softly. "Only now, our ministry looks a little different." That new ministry blossomed in unexpected ways. Through Bill's online writings, countless people found courage to face their own battles. Caregivers, widows, and those living with illness began sharing their stories with one another, forming a digital fellowship inspired by the Gaithers' resilience. Each post Bill shared, whether it was a reflection on patience, a poem Gloria once wrote, or a small story from their daily life, was met with thousands of heartfelt responses. People said it helped them see God's presence even in the smallest moments: a morning sunrise, a shared cup of coffee, or the touch of a loved one's hand. Bill also began to collaborate with younger gospel artists, mentoring them not just musically but spiritually. He reminded them that gospel music was never about fame or success. It was about connection, about being a vessel for hope. In his quiet way, he passed on the torch of faith to a new generation, ensuring that the message he and Gloria had carried for decades would live on. Meanwhile, Gloria continued to inspire through her presence alone. Though her words grew fewer, her spirit never dimmed. Those who visited often said there was a light in her eyes, gentle but strong, a reflection of the peace she had always written about in her songs. Bill described her as the heart of the home, even in silence. "She may speak less now," he said, but her love says everything that needs to be said. The couple's enduring faith even caught the attention of national media outlets, which revisited their story with reverence. They were no longer just celebrated musicians, but symbols of steadfast love, two people showing the world what it truly means to walk by faith, not by sight. One particularly touching moment came during a holiday season when several gospel artists gathered outside the Gaither home for a surprise carol performance. They sang softly under the porch lights, songs that Gloria had written years ago. Bill and Gloria watched from the window, hand in hand. Tears streamed down Bill's face as he whispered, "She wrote those words, and they're still giving life." The moment was simple but unforgettable, a reminder that music, like faith, never truly fades. In the months that followed, Bill continued to find ways to express gratitude for the support they had received. He organized a small charity initiative in Gloria's honor, directing donations toward dementia research and caregiver support programs. Even as Gloria's condition progressed, her peaceful strength remained unbroken. Visitors often described feeling something sacred in her presence, an unspoken reminder that the human spirit, when rooted in faith, can endure anything. Bill, too, found renewal through caring for her. Though it was exhausting at times, he often described it as the purest form of love. In an interview, he reflected, "When you love someone for a lifetime, this is where that love leads, to serving, to holding, to simply being there. And in those quiet moments, I feel God closer than ever." Their story began inspiring not only fans, but also pastors, therapists, and caregivers across the world. Many churches started using the Gaithers' journey as an example in sermons about faith through suffering, marriage, and devotion. Their music, already timeless, took on new layers of meaning. "He Touched Me" became a song about spiritual healing as much as physical, while "Because He Lives" became a declaration of courage in the face of loss. As years passed, Bill's reflections turned into a new book, part memoir, part meditation on love, faith, and caregiving. It featured excerpts from his journals and blog, along with photographs capturing tender moments between him and Gloria. The book quickly became a source of comfort to many, offering a deeply honest portrayal of what it means to walk through life's valleys with grace. Readers described it not as a story of tragedy, but of transformation, a testimony that even in decline, there can be beauty, meaning, and divine purpose. The Gaithers' legacy, already vast, now carried a new depth. They had shown that faith wasn't just about standing on stage and singing praises. It was also about how you lived when the music stopped, when life grew quiet, and love had to speak without words. Their journey had become a living sermon, one that reminded the world that true faith doesn't erase suffering. It redeems it. Even now, as their story continues, the ripple effect of their faith is unmistakable. Choirs still sing their hymns, families still gather around the piano to play their songs. And somewhere, in countless homes across the world, someone facing pain or fear finds comfort in the simple truth that Bill and Gloria taught through both word and example. Because He lives, we can face tomorrow.